What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This is vlog number 22. Pretty unbelievable here. But we're going to hop into the Poker House 1-2 session in for $500. Let's go. We're hopping into the very first hand, Pocket Aces. We are in the small blind with about $500 in our stack. There's a $5 straddle on the button and the under the gun player limps. The action folds to me and I raise it up to $30. As I would expect, the under the gun player calls and my buddy Funky Poker on the button puts in the call as well. So we're going to go three ways out of position to both players to a flop, which is King 10-8 with two clubs and a diamond. Kind of a nasty board here. There's a ton of flush and straight draws, as well as a few two pairs our opponents could have. That being said, our hand needs quite a bit of protection from the flush draw, Queen Jack, Jack 9, 9, 7. So I bet out for $50. The under the gun player folds, but now Funky on the button. He decides to raise it up to $125. It's a relatively small sizing, and it's a little bit of a scary board, but knowing him, knowing our history, we have played hours and hours and hours together, and this guy, let's just say he doesn't always have it. I put in the call to evaluate the turn card. Turn is pretty clean. It's the 4 of diamonds. It does put another flush draw out there, but I'm not going to be leading into my opponent. We still could be behind by two pair, like King 8, King 10, 10, 8, so I start with a check, and fortunately, he decides to check it back here on the turn. That's pretty nice to see. The river card connects the board a bit. It's the Jack of Spades. Definitely not really what we want to see. It's still possible he could have just top pair, King Queen, King 9. Now King Jack has two pairs, so we don't love to see it. But I decide to go for a little bit of a blocker bet here on the river. Our hand isn't quite strong enough to go for a chunky bet here after getting raised on the flop. So I decide to put out $30, targeting maybe even a hand like Queen Jack or Jack 9 that rivered second pair, and they would just have to pay off the $30. So that's what I do. And he pretty quickly puts in the call. We show him the bullets, and he shows us King 9 for just top pair. One of those hands we could get value from, and we did. So we're going to scoop the first pot of the session. Let's go. And shortly after that, we win a massive double board bomb pot against Funky once again. We flopped the nut straight, and he flopped the second nut straight, and we held with 10 high on the other board. Pretty insane. It was a massive pot, and our stack is now up to $1,200. And we look down at 5 deuce of hearts. If you're wondering why are we even playing this one, well, the action folds to me, and I got my brother Gordy on the left. He came out to Dallas to play some poker with us this time, so I gotta show him the ropes of how it works here in Texas. I raised it up to $25, and I know Gordy, he's very aggressive. He kind of plays like me. He 3-bets up to $80, and the action gets to me because we're just blind versus blind. There is a button straddle on, but a lot of times it's irrelevant and they're probably not going to come along. Either way, the action is on me, and I have 5 deuce of hearts. I'm definitely not going to call, but I'm weighing out my other options here. Do I want to show the kid a little Texas poker? Do I want to get a little wild on him? And I think the answer is yes. I'm slipping that into my 4-bet range. I 4-bet to $230, and Gordy goes into the tank. Now, I think this is a bit of a mistake. Not because I'm holding 5 deuce, but because of the sizing I used. He only has $450 in his stack. I probably should have 4-bet to like $190 to $200, because if he was 3-bet bluffing, he would probably just fold to that size. Anyway, why waste the extra $30-40? And now it's awkward when he jams. I'm kind of getting a good price. Obviously not going to be stacking off with the 5 deuce though. He goes into the tank, and trust me, he kind of knows how I play. He knows I get a little bit wild here with the 3-bets and 4-bets and all the fancy stuff these poker players are doing nowadays. But in the end, he decides to shove it in my face for $450, and I'm stuck with 5 high. It is suited, but it's not going to be good enough here. Of course, when I fold, I have to show the table that I was just goofing around, all right? I'm not being so serious. This table is so serious, bro. I'm just trying to have a good time, you know? So I show him the 5 deuce of hearts, and he actually shows us the 10 of spades, which is pretty interesting. But it basically leaves only one hand being pocket 10s, which he confirmed with me afterward. That makes sense. Against me, I'd probably jam pocket 10s, but against the average 1-2 player, probably not. Nice hand to Gordy. We are going to move on to the next hand, and we're playing real poker this time, all right? No more goofing off. I look down at King 9 offsuit in the under the gun straddle. That's right, I made it $5 blind, because I'm crazy, man. I'm crazy. The small blind and the big blind, Funky Poker, they decide to put in the limp now. We have King 9 offsuit in position on 2 players that just limped. I mean, I just want to take down the dead money or build the pot. So I raise it up to $30, and we get called by the small blind. Now, this is where the hand gets a little bit wild. Funky in the big blind. He 3-bets. He limp 3-bet the big blind to $130. Now, this doesn't make too much sense ever in poker. There is basically 0% chance he ever limped a strong hand here. Now, if this is some guy I've never played with and, he's an old man coffee and he doesn't want to get his kings cracked or whatever, but once the money goes in, he starts going. But that's not the situation. I played with Funky a long time, and I've never, ever seen him do this. He knows that I'm probably raising pretty light, and the small blind calls, that's absolute dead money. He wants to take advantage of this, probably with a weird hand like King 5 or like Ace Deuce or like Pocket 3s or something like that. Some random hand, I guarantee it. So, we are going to call, and it sounds very weird, but we're going to be in position on him, and I think he has just a garbage hand. That being said, I have a garbage hand myself, but we're going to battle here. The small blind gets out of the way, and we're going to go heads up to a flop. The flop now comes King 10-3 Rainbow. Pretty good for us. We flop top pair. Now, like I mentioned, if he had a decent hand, like any king better than mine, King 10, King Jack, King Queen, Ace King, he is going to raise, I guarantee it. So, I kind of feel like I have the nuts here unless he has pocket 3s like I mentioned earlier. He never has pocket 10s, he never has pocket kings. I guarantee you he is at the bottom of his range here. So the action starts on him, and I'm obviously going to be calling a bet. I assume he's going to c-bet on this flop, and he does. He makes it $90 to go. I don't think there's anything else to do but call. The board is pretty dry. There's a few straight draws, but we have top pair. We are coming along. I put in the call, and we're going to see a pretty nice looking turn card. It's the 3 of clubs. I mentioned one of those hands that he probably could have us beat on this board, and that's pocket 3s. Now it's only reduced to one combo being quads. So I basically feel like I have the nuts here. It is possible he could have a 3, maybe like ace 3 off, or I don't know, 4-3 suited. I've seen crazier things with this guy, I promise. Still feeling pretty good about my hand, waiting to see what he does. He decides on a pretty large sizing here, being all in. All of his chips are in the middle. It's about $500 effective. And this is a crazy spot because I basically snap called in the moment because I already made up my mind. Felt like I have the nuts. He can have endless amount of Queen 9, Queen Jack, random hands that he's just bluffing with here. So I snapped, and he pretty quickly shows us the bad news with Ace 3 offsuit. Absolutely disgusting. We run at 2 boards, but we do not improve on either. Pretty sick hand there. Pretty nice turn card for him, and I knew he had a garbage hand. I've never seen anything like it. Pretty happy I went with my read there, and the snap call on the turn, I already made up my mind. I wasn't going to waste any time. Unfortunately, he sucked out on us like he always does, and we're going to move on to the next hand. Real quick, if you guys are looking to play online, I got a great place for you. Click the link in my description. Some really, really fun games, cash games, tournaments, all stakes, anytime, anywhere. Absolutely to your freedom on your iPad, your phone, your computer, wherever you want to play. Click the link in the description. It's a lot of fun. I hope I see you there. This next hand we're not going to go over too much, but I ended up making an incorrect ace high call with ace jack high against quads. So that didn't go too well. It wasn't too crazy, but I just thought I would include it. Sometimes you're wrong, and I definitely was because he had quads. Moving on. We have ace king offsuit in the small blind. For some reason, we only have $250 in our stack. It was probably right after the last hand, and we just couldn't get the time to add on. There's $5 on the button. The cutoff puts in the limp. I raise it up to $30, and we only get one color from the cutoff. Going to a flop now, which is 10-9-3 with 2 diamonds and a heart. We hold the ace of diamonds in our hand, which is pretty good. I start with a check, though, out of position in a single raised pot, and he bets out for $30. Sitting with the 2 best overcards and a backdoor flush draw, our hand could definitely be good a lot of the time. I put in the call to evaluate a turn card, which is the 6 of clubs. I start with a check once again, and he pretty quickly checks it back, leading us to a pretty nice river card, which is the king of diamonds. It does bring in the flush draw, and it does bring in Queen Jack. Although the good news is we do block a lot of his flushes with the ace of diamonds. I decided to go for a little bit of a blocker-sized bet here, maybe to get called by like 9-8, Jack 9, maybe like Queen 10, pocket 7s. I'm not too sure, to be honest with you. This raise will also induce a few bluffs from this guy. This is the older gentleman who actually went for a pretty crazy bluff earlier. So I think this guy kind of likes to go for it. He's got that crazy Texan in him, you know? Sometimes you can see it in people's eyes. But I decided to go for a block-sized bet here. And sure enough, he decides to get all crazy on me, and he goes to a raise for $175. Obviously, this was like a part of the plan, but once they actually do this, it's definitely a lot more difficult to put in the call. Having the ace of diamonds is just so important here because we just block so much of his value. Definitely can't fold this exact holding, so I do as I plan to, and I put in the call, and we have the winner, but he shows us King Jack, which is pretty weird hand to do that with. I guess he blocks the straight and some 2 pairs. I don't know. Maybe he just thought he was going for value. Who knows? I don't know what goes on in that guy's head, but we're going to scoop in a pretty nice pot with the big slick. In the next hand, we are on the button straddle with 9-5 of spades. There's 5 limps to me. I'm going to check and see a flop. The flop is 8-6-3 rainbow with a spade. We have a gutter ball and a backdoor flush draw. The action now checks to the cutoff, who decides to put out a bet of $15. In position, I could definitely bluff on a few runouts, but I have an overcard and all the draws I just mentioned. So I'm going to put in the call, and the hijack puts in the call as well. Going 3 ways to a pretty good turn, which is the 10 of spades. It improves us to that backdoor flush draw still with our gutter ball to the 7. The cutoff now decides to continue for $35, and I think this is a really great card to raise on. We could definitely rep a hand like 10-8, 10-6, 9-7, and if our opponent has a hand like 7-6 or ace-8, king-8, it's definitely going to be pretty difficult to call off that hand for a raise. And if we get called, we could definitely win on the river, being a spade or a 7. So that's what I do. I go for the aggressive route. I raise it up to $110. Feel pretty good about this one until the hijack actually puts in the call. I'm not really sure what this means here. Definitely not what we were trying to accomplish, but now the cutoff comes along as well. So we basically just juiced up the pot to hit the river, and hopefully that happens. The river card is the king of spades. Let's go. We river the flush, and we are looking pretty good. The action checks to me like I would expect it to, and now we have to decide on a bet sizing that'll get us paid off. It's a pretty weird board to get paid off on because now the overcard, it's probably going to scare a hand if they had like 10-9, 10-7, Jack-10, stuff like that. But I think we could definitely still get called by like a set or 2 pair. Definitely don't want to jam. They have about $250 to $375 in their stack. So I decided to bet a pretty decently small sizing for only $175. Trying to get a crying call from like 10-8 or pocket 3s. The hijack unfortunately folds, but the action gets over to the cutoff and they decide to put in the call. We show them the flush and they muck their cards. He said he actually had a flush and he turned over the 7 of spades accidentally. He could have had 7-4 spades, 7-3, 7-6. It's possible. If that's true, pretty cooler situation there on the river. And we're going to scoop a nice pot there. $750 rivering the flush. Let's go. In the next hand, we are on the button straddle with Jack-10 offsuit. The middle position player raises it up to $15. I put in the call, so we're going to go heads up to a flop, which is ace-king 3 with 2 hearts. Surprisingly, he decides to start with a check. Usually as the pre-flop aggressor, you're going to want to bet this board even if you don't connect. I think when people in live poker play pretty honest on a board like this, if they had ace-king, kings, aces, they probably want to bet and protect from the straight draws and flush draws. So when I see a check here, I definitely want to take advantage of that. Try to get him to fold a hand like pocket 8s, pocket 9s, queen 10, queen 9, random hands like that are beating us at the moment. So I decided to take a stab here with intentions on firing on future streets. I bet out for $15, but unfortunately he decides to stick around. We're probably going to have to do a little bit more barreling. He decides to check once again on the 4 of diamonds. I want to get him to fold maybe a hand like king jack, king 10, pocket queens, pocket jacks, stuff like that. So I put out another bet here of $40. This guy is not going to go away. He puts in the call. The river now is the 6 of hearts, and he pretty quickly checks it over to me once again. Now, I think this is a pretty good card to bluff on here. We don't have any hearts in our hand, which would definitely be preferred to bluff with a heart here on the river when the flush completes. That being said, I definitely think it'd be easy to get him off of king queen, maybe a weak ace like ace 5, ace 7. And I think most players would probably c-bet their flush draws on an ace king high board, being the pre-flop aggressor. So I decide to put a big chunky bet out there. It's the only way we're going to get it done here with Jack High. $210 into $143. I like this bet a lot. Obviously would prefer to have like the jack of hearts blocking some of his flush combinations, but I like the heart. I like the spot. I put in the big bet and he snap calls us. Yikes. With the nuts. He has king 9 of hearts for the nuts. The best possible hand. So probably not the best decision for me to bet $210 into that. But what are you going to do? I'm pretty surprised he didn't re-raise. I think in a tournament, that's actually illegal. You have to re-raise the best possible hand. I don't recommend you guys just call the nuts on the river, but hey man, everybody's got their own style. All right, we're going to move on to the next hand. This one is the most unique hand of poker I might have ever played. We looked down at 5-4 of clubs in the cutoff with just over $1,000 in our stack. The low jack player raises to $20, and I like to be aggressive here with these suited connectors. 5-4 suited, 7-8 suited, 6-7 suited, stuff like that. I 3-bet up to $60, and he puts in the call. Going heads up to a flop, which is king 6-4 rainbow with 1 club. Not amazing for us, but we do flop bottom pair with a backdoor flush and straight draw. Surprisingly, though, he decides to lead into me. This should never really happen in a 3-bet pot, at least on a king high board. He bets out for $50. With my specific hand, I think we have a pretty nice looking raise. We block bottom set being pocket fours, he could definitely have. And we also have some backdoor opportunity to bluff on later streets. So we have the range advantage, pocket aces, pocket kings, ace king, which he should never really have. So we could definitely apply a lot of pressure on this board. I decided to raise it up to $130. Maybe get him to fold a hand like pocket nines, pocket eights, stuff like that. But he goes into the tank here, and eventually he turns over his cards. Face up, he shows us pocket jacks. And he's just sitting there, and the hand is only on the flop. This isn't the river, folks. He's showing me his hand, pocket jacks. And he looks at me, he's staring me down, and he puts in the call. Now we're going to have to play out the rest of this hand, knowing what our opponent has, and we're probably going to have to bluff unless we don't improve. Now the turn card gets interesting because it's the king of spades, and he checks to me. This is a really weird spot because if I did have a hand like ace king, pocket aces, pocket queens, stuff like that, would I really want to bet here, or would that just get him to fold? That's the question. I wasn't really sure what to do in the moment. I wasn't trained for this. This isn't in the solvers, guys. Your opponent isn't supposed to show you their hand. But when they do, you should probably always win, right? We're going to try to figure this one out. If I had a king here, would I try to bet all three streets? I don't know. It's pretty tough. I'm not going to lie. But in the moment, I just decided to check it back and maybe bluff on the river card. Maybe we could improve to a full house on the river and get some value. Who knows? But we're going to see what it comes, and it's the queen of spades. It's actually really good because it's an overcard to his pocket jacks. And this is really good for us because we know what he has. So obviously, if we had like queen 10 or ace queen, we would bet because we had the best hand. But if we have to bluff, I guess we have to bluff as well. But I didn't want to bet too big here. He checked it over to me. And obviously, I'm going to have to bluff. I have the worst hand. I'm not just going to surrender. It's not what we do here. We get a really nice river card to bluff on. So we're going to have to go for it. I didn't want to bet too big because if I did have a hand like ace queen, I'd probably want to try to bet maybe 40% pot or so. Try to get some value from his hand. So that's what I do. I put out a bet of $180, and he goes into the tank. Obviously, this is a pretty gross spot for his pocket jacks, but this whole hand is weird because he knows that I know what he has. So if I was bluffing, I'd obviously have to bet, but if I was value betting, I don't know, man. In the end, he tanks, but he decides to put in the call. I say nice call and muck my cards. Pretty wild hand there. I've never seen anything like that. Maybe he does that all the time, and he's just like a crusher at the 1-2 games, but nice hand to that guy. We're going to move on to the next hand. Hopefully, the guy doesn't show me his cards. Moving on to the next hand, we have $500 in the hijack. We look down at ace-queen offsuit. There's one limp, and I raise it up to $20. My buddy Brad, who is a Poker House regular here, he 3-bets from the big blind to $80. Pretty standard stuff, 4x sizing. Sitting with ace-queen offsuit here, if I was out of position, I would consider 4-bet bluffing here, but in position, we're going to take a flop. I just put in the call, and we're going to a flop which is 6-4-5 with 2 spades. Obviously not really great for our hand, but it's probably better for me than it is for Brad. We have more 6-7 suited, pocket sixes, pocket fours, pocket fives, and we also probably have 8-7 suited. He decides to go for a c-bet here of $65. Sitting with ace high could definitely be the best hand. He could have king queen, ace jack, ace 10, king jack, flush draws, stuff like that. So I put in the call to evaluate a turn card, which is the king of hearts. This is where Brad does something a little bit strange, and he snap checks it over to me. It's a little bit weird, especially on a card that probably favors your range so much. He could have ace king, king queen, king jack, but I think if he had all those hands, he would probably try to think about it and maybe not just snap check it to me. Regardless though, sitting with ace high could be the best hand. I'm not really sure. The king is obviously a terrible card. I decided to check it back and take a river card. The river now is the 6 of clubs. Doesn't really change anything about the hand. Neither of us should really have any 6s, and if they do, it's probably me being 6-7 suited. Now he decides to put out a bet of a little over half pot for $160, and you guys know me, we are definitely going to think this one through here with ace high. He snap checked the turn. Would he do that with ace king? Probably not. Would he do that with king queen? Probably not. He could be doing this with a hand like pocket 10s, pocket jacks, pocket queens. It's possible, but I don't think they would choose this sizing here on the river. I'm just a little bit confused here. I think it's possible he has a hand like ace jack of spades, queen jack of spades, jack 10, just random hands like that. I could definitely bluff this river. I'm just a little bit confused with what he's doing here. So in the end, you guys know me. I like to put a hero call out there. I like to get in the mix. I stick in the call, but unfortunately, he shows us top pair, top kicker. Ace king. So he had one of those hands that I didn't really expect him to have snap checking the turn. It was ace king of spades, which I guess makes sense because you don't really need too much protection. If you didn't have the flush draw, you might want to bet for a little bit of protection. But nice hand to Brad. 2 unsuccessful ace high calls this session. We're going to add on a little bit more and move on to the next hand. We are now under the gun +1 with pocket jacks. The under the gun player races to $15, and I definitely am going to be 3-betting this one. I make it $45 to go. The button puts in the call, and the big blind puts in the call. So we get 2 cold callers. Now the action gets back over to the under the gun player. He decides to go all in for $180. Sitting with about $770 in my stack, I cover everybody in the hand except for the big blind, but being the second cold caller to my 3-bet, he's never ever going to have me beat here. So I rejam my pocket jacks, and surprisingly we actually get the button to call, which is pretty good for us, I guess. We're going to a flop, but before we are going to see what we're up against. The big blind shows pocket 10s, we are in great shape, and the button shows pocket jacks too. We have the same hand. We just need to dodge a 10, and we're going to chop up a decently sized pot here. But in the window is the 10 of hearts. Oh my god, we're drawing dead. I do have hearts, but the turn card is the 9 of diamonds. And the river card is the 6 of diamonds. Pocket 10s is going to scoop. That is so sick, dude. We are going to lose that one. Unfortunate that we had the same exact hand as that guy, and he hit a 2-outer. This session has been pretty crazy so far. We're down quite a bit after adding on quite a lot. I'll let you guys know how much I was in for officially at the end of the video. In the next hand, we look down at the beautiful pocket aces. Can we get a double up here? Hopefully. We're in the hijack with $600 in our stack. There's 2 early position limps, and I raise it up to $20. Both players put in the call, and we're going to a flop, which is Jack 10-10 rainbow. Not really the best flop in the world, obviously being paired. If they have a 10, they're going to have us beat, but we still can get value from plenty of hands. So the early position player checks, and now the middle position bets out for $60. The lead into me is definitely a bit scary, but I think it's pretty indicative of like Queen 9, King Queen, King Jack, hands like that. We're definitely going to have crushed. I'm not going to be raising here. I just put in the call, and we're going to go heads up to the turn, which is the 7 of spades. The action is on middle position, and he pretty quickly slides his entire stack into the middle. What is going on here? The 7 of spades only changed one thing, that being 9-8. I'm still just a little bit confused. He jams a lot. The pot was only $180, and he just put $500 in the middle. What is he trying to say here? We have pocket aces. Obviously, we lose to 9-8. We lose to like Jack 10, Queen 10, King 10, Ace 10, 10-9. There's definitely a lot of hands he could have. But this is also the guy that showed us his pocket jacks in the middle of the hand. And I kind of want to get some revenge on this guy. He took quite a bit from us last time. And I don't know if I'm going to lay down aces here. I think it's even possibly as a hand like King Jack, because we didn't really 3-bet pre, so our hand is definitely pretty disguised. He could also have a hand like King Queen, Queen 9, a flush draw, like maybe Ace Queen of spades or something like that. So I go deep into the tank here with pocket aces, and in the end, I stick in the chips, I put in the call, and he quickly shows us the 8-7 offsuit. We are in amazing shape to double up here. We just need to dodge the 7 on the river, and we do. It's the 10 of diamonds. We are going to scoop a massive pot, just under $1,200. That's exactly what we needed this session. He taps the table twice. Nice hand, man. We are zooming. I'm not sure how much we're down right now, but all I know is we're pretty deep in the hole, and there's 3 hands left in this vlog, and they are wild. We look down at 8-7 of clubs on the hijack. There's 2 limps to me, and I raise it up to $35. Both of the limpers call and the button. So we're going to go 4 ways to a flop here, which is Ace 6 deuce rainbow with 1 club. Obviously not great for our hand. We have some backdoor flush and straight draws. But when the action checks to me, the board is super dry. We can definitely get a lot of folds from hands that are currently beating us that aren't top pair. We're going to have the range advantage on this board, so I decided to put out a C-bet of $50. There's definitely going to be a lot of turn cards we can continue on. Any 5, any 9, any club, even a 10 or a 4. So I bet out for $50, and we only get 1 caller. It's from Under the Gun +2. We're going heads up to the turn here, which is basically the dream card, the 9 of clubs. We turn both of our draws, open-ended straight draw and a flush draw. What I did not expect to see, though, is him to lead into me for $75. I'm not sure what this 9 really changes, but he bets out for $75. And I look over at his stack, and it's about 150 or so left. Obviously, we can't be folding when we get a turn card like this. But the question is, do we want to just go all in or see the river card for $75? I think the right thing to do is just see the river card. I think it's likely he has top pair. Maybe a hand like Ace Jack, Ace 10 or something like that. So when he leads out for $75 with only 150 behind, I don't think he's going to be folding to a jam. And if we miss the river and he checks to us, we'll probably bluff. But hopefully we can drill that river. I put in the call, and the river card, the jack of clubs. Let's go. We river the flush, and he pretty quickly puts his entire stack in the middle. We snap call and show him the flush. He looks quite disappointed and shows us ace king. Wow. Did not expect him to have ace king there. We suck out on the turn and the river. Pretty gross there. We probably had like, I don't know, 4% on the flop, and we found a way. Let's go. With $1,600 in our stack, we are looking good. We have ace-9 of hearts in the hijack. There's a $5 button straddle. The player under the gun raises it up to $30. I like 3-betting the suited aces here, so that's what I do. I make it $90 to go. Unfortunately, I didn't really look at the under the gun player's stack because he only has about $200 total. I definitely wouldn't have 3-bet if I knew that. But he goes all in, and now I'm sitting here getting $100 more to call to win about $400. So I definitely have to put in the call here. But one thing I completely forgot about here is the button straddle. That player has ultimate last action, and he puts in the 200. What is going on here? He puts in the call, and let me tell you, this player, he's been pretty active to say the least. Can we find a good flop here and get paid off one time? Let's see what the flop brings in. Queen 10 for all hearts. We have the cojones, the nuts, the ace high flush. Unbelievable stuff here. We're heads up with the button here, and I think he's pretty deep, so we could win a massive one here. Just hoping he has some kind of a piece. I think on monotone flops here, I could definitely check or bet super small. This time, I decided to give the villain a little bit of rope here and check, but unfortunately, he checks back. Turn card now is the 5 of diamonds, and I definitely have to start putting money in the middle. I decided to go for a super small sizing, maybe to have our opponent catch up here, maybe to get value from a hand like 10-9, Jack 10. I put out a small bet here of $80, and fortunately, he puts in the call. River card now is a brick. I'm hoping maybe he has, I don't know what he can have here, but I decided to go for about a third the size of the pot for $290, just praying that he has something to call with here, but unfortunately, he folds, and I showed the under the gun player that I flopped the goods. He shows us pocket jacks, and he's going to lose that one. But pretty fortunate for that flop. Thank you, dealer. We're going to scoop in about a $1,000 pot. Feeling good. We are coming back this session. It's been quite the ride. I got one more quick hand to go over here. I had pocket aces in a 3-bet pot, and we get it all in on the flop. He donk jammed all in for like $350 on 975 with 2 diamonds. I snap called, and he showed us a set, and it was a big pot. It was about a $1,000 pot. Unfortunately, we did not improve, but we're going to move on to the last hand of the night. We still have about $1,500 in our stack, and this one is going to be a fun one. We look down at Queen 5 of hearts on the cutoff. There's 2 limps, and I'm going to be raising this one up. It's about midnight. We're playing 6-handed. Everybody's playing a little bit loose. My buddy Brad on the button, he decides to put in the call. Now we're going to a flop which is 7-6-5 with 2 diamonds. We flop bottom pair, could be the best hand, but on this type of board, I'm definitely going to check it over to the button player. That's what I do, and he pretty quickly checks it back. The turn card now is the Gin 5 of spades. We improved to trips, and now we are definitely going to start betting. We want to get value from his flush draws, straight draws, maybe a hand like pocket 4s, pocket 3s, ace 8 or something like that. So I put out a bet of $40, and he pretty quickly puts in the call. The river card now is a brick, which is what we love to see, the Jack of hearts. And now we have to decide what we want to do. Our line looks pretty weird, and we shouldn't really ever have too many 5s in our hand. This Jack hopefully hits him on the river if he has a hand like Jack 10 of diamonds or spades, King Jack, Queen Jack, stuff like that. So if we put out a big bet here, we might get paid off. And you guys know how I overbet earlier with Jack 10 on the ace high board and was bluffing. We're going to do a pretty similar thing here, but this time we have a very good hand. I put out a big bet of $255, looking to get paid off by a jack or maybe a non-believing 6 or a 7 because all the flush draws bricked and it could look like we had a missed draw. Also, when Brad checks back the flop, I don't think he's ever going to have a super strong hand, so we can definitely take advantage of that if we were bluffing here, and we'd probably bet a lot of our overpairs, so our line doesn't really make too much sense. $255 in the middle, and Brad goes into the tank. Before putting in the call, the last hand of the night, we get some value. I show him the Queen 5, and he looks absolutely disgusted. He shows us the Ace Jack of diamonds, a perfect river card. We're going to scoop an over $650 pot to end the session. Let's go. Thank you guys for watching the video. Click the subscribe button if you're interested in some more content. I was into that game for a total of $1,850. Now, to remind you, it's only a $500 max buy-in, so I added on quite a bit. But we came back and we only lost $15. We're out for $1,835. Crazy comeback session. Let's go. Thank you guys for watching. I will catch you in the next one.